on a bonus Dance Mama Live session this morning, talking Mama Maths with Ele Stevens, the barefoot accountant. Ele is here in the house. Woo woo! Hi, Ele.
Hello, how you doing?
It's live and excited. I absolutely adore spreadsheets. I'm a total nerd on those, so I'm looking forward to this. And we're basically at your disposal, Ele, to tell us about the barefoot accountant. You've got a really particular culture, I think, in your organisation of business humanised, which is super lovely. And we're going to be sort of just looking at your top tips, really, because I think for a lot of people, it can often feel like a bit of a big, heavy topic. And it doesn't have to be, does it? So
no, exactly.
Over to you in your capable hands.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm Ele Stevens, the barefoot accountant. We've been running for about 6 years now. We've got a high street shop, which is quite lovely. We've got some fake grass on the floor and some lovely bespoke chairs, so it's nice and welcoming for everybody to come in. And we try and make it really, you know, like you said, tax and everything else can be really scary and confusing. HMRC can be terrifying. And we just try and make it a little bit more chilled and easy, because it doesn't have to be as scary as it is. So yeah, we've been running for about 6 years. We've got a team of 5 now, which is really nice. And all of our clients, well, no, I'd say about 95% of our clients are creative industries. So we've definitely specialised in that area. We understand it's terrifying and confusing. So we've just gone in and tried to find nice, easy solutions for people, which is quite fun.
Amazing. And Ele, you have a dance background yourself. In fact, you are a dance mama.
Yes.
And that's brilliant, isn't it? Because you've really got that primary understanding of the industry, its demands, and all of those things that can really affect people's efficiency, I think, and enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I danced when I was younger, and then I was my last proper job was finance director at Tring Park School for Performing Arts. So yeah, so I was there for a couple of years before I set this up here. So I've got a really good idea of the industry from both sides, and from the sort of tuition side as well. So yeah, I get it. And then one of our team members here was a dancer for many years as well. Which is lovely. She joined our team a couple of years ago. So yeah, we understand everything. We understand it's scary. There's no judgment. We're just trying to find ways to make it easier for people.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive into that. What kind of advice or kind of top tips do you think are really useful for really busy, creative men and women, or however they like to identify their gender, in this kind of space of how they can kind of do the finance bit better?
Yeah, no, there's some really easy things to do to make it really simple. So the first thing is to have a separate business bank account, or a separate bank account for your business income and expenses. Keeping it all separate at the time means you have to remember less later on. It's all in one place. You can move money out of there to your personal account, that's fine, but keep that all in one place. That's the way you're going to remember everything. You're going to remember to claim everything. And if you're using an accountant, it makes it much easier. Yeah. So that's my first tip, which leads into my second top tip. So there are loads of apps out there now that can do a lot of the work for you, which we love. We've tried loads of them. We found this brilliant one called Coconut. There are lots of others out there. We just trialed Coconut. We think it's the most straightforward. It doesn't do lots of things you don't need it to. The basic package, I think, is like £3.60 a month, so it's not that expensive. You link it to your bank account, and my headphones falling out. You link it to your bank account, and then you categorize your earnings, which is lovely. You photograph any receipts into it. So you've got backup there. So for HMRC,
I'm still a bit slow on this, Ele, and I'm seriously, and I know most of us will probably be in this space. Like Friday, sitting there for a couple of hours, putting them all in a folder, uploading them to a spreadsheet, thinking I cannot wait for this session today and find out which is best, that I don't have to sit here doing this.
Yeah, well, so Coconut's brilliant, and the reason I like an app on your phone, because we always have our phone on the time. If you have to think, right, I'm going to do my accounts, I'm going to sit down with my laptop, open it, you've got all these barriers to actually starting to work. Whereas if you're on a train, or you're sitting waiting for somebody for a coffee, you've got 5 minutes, we all sit and look at our phone. So you could actually go in and go, oh, let's do 5 minutes of my Coconut, and just, well, I've just bought a coffee, I'm actually meeting somebody that this is claimable. We just take a photograph of it and put it in. So it's trying to break down all those barriers, because when there's something we don't want to do, you put up, if there's barriers in the way, you're never going to do it, and then it becomes this huge deal, and you just go into a state of panic, your brain shuts down, you're like, I can't do it, I can't cope with it, you end up being late with returns, and you just shut down completely. So we're just trying to go, right, what is the easiest way, and we do this with our clients, what's the easiest way for them to be able to give us the information we need to do our job.
Yeah.
So Coconut, we found the good thing with Coconut too is actually you can do your own tax return from it if you're savvy enough.
Wow.
So it will print out a report, it estimates your tax through the year. So if you're savvy enough to know what you're doing, it is quite straightforward. A lot of people like the security of the accountant and just like, you speak to HMRC for me, please deal with it. But if you're kind of used to running a business and household, it will pull out the report you need to do your tax return. It's really lovely. We love it.
Download it now. First action.
Download Coconut. So yeah, it's really nice, and I say we tested it on our most creative clients, who are really, I love them to death, but really the most disorganized people ever. I hope they're not watching this. But we tested it out with them first, and they absolutely loved it. We got the best feedback, so we were like, right, that's it, we're rolling it out.
Brilliant. Yeah, cool, excellent.
Lovely. And then it helps you to feel in control, and then you feel empowered, and then you're like, I can do this, I can take on anything, because you've got that basic sort of levels of feeling like you're sorted.
And also just how much, I mean, we've kind of got like bandwidth is being taken up already with COVID anxiety stuff, which is stealing from creative, connected, engaged time. But again, if you feel like a bit out of control on the admin side, that starts to eat away at it as well, not just in terms of the time, but like you say, the confidence and the empowerment you feel towards that, and anything that makes that easier is
no, definitely. And it grows, and then you don't realize how much brain space it's taking up until then it's not there, and then you're like, oh my god, that was taking up so much, and you just kind of go, it'd be fine, you just shut it down, but it's still there growing. And it is like a gremlin, and it's taking up your creative space as well. I know when there's something I've been putting off, which I do, it happens quite a lot, and then you finally do it, and then you're like, oh okay, I have space now to be creative and think of the next things I want to do, and because while I'm an accountant, I also think of creative strategy things for the business, and of course.
And again, that kind of is demonstrated through the culture that you're creating, and then in terms of the environment, in terms of the physical office space, but also that sings through the website and the approachability. And what I really love and we wanted to have on this morning, but it's a bit too bright, is the lovely arrow sign behind.
Oh, the lovely arrow sign. I put it on briefly.
Go on, we'll have a little bit of a demo.
We'll have a little.
For those of you who might be listening in the future, a light is now going on.
And it's a bit bright, so I'll turn it off again.
But it's all those things. And I think having a creative background, that all of those things really matter in terms of creating the right conditions to really get the best out of people.
Oh, hugely. I mean, I still struggle with people because office furniture is really expensive, like normal office furniture, and then you go into these offices and it's all the kind of standard. I mean, I don't really want to diss anyone else's office, but it's kind of not my thing. But if you've got these very standardized, very expensive desks and these blue chairs, white walls, it's not very inspiring, and it's really expensive. We furnish this office really quite cheaply. We've got big IKEA desks. Emma and I have got big stand-up desks. So we've got bar stools, but we can stand up as well. So that's really good for your back. We've got some lower level desks and fake grass on the floor, like I said, and shop with lots of plants. People keep coming in, they think we're a shop or sell cards or a florist.
And it might be them that should be selling that, and you're doing their accounts for them.
Yes, well, actually, I mean, what we do, we do have displays in our windows, so any local creative businesses, or not local, can have a shop window for a month. We just display their products and put them out on socials, because we don't need our shop windows, and it gives us lots of social media content, so everyone wins.
What is that?
But then people do think we're a shop.
Oh, and that is just testament, isn't it? Testament to the invitation that you're giving people. So as usual, I've made people diverge on a tangent. Back to our tips. So we've done coconut. We've got our separate bank account. What next is helpful?
Right, so coconut is quite key, actually, and then storing your receipts digitally. So it was April 2023, it's now April 2024. We need to start doing 4 returns a year, 4 self-assessment returns.
What?
So,
stop the lights. Stop the light. hang on. Whoa there. Right,
okay.
I've not taken that. I've not appreciated that until this very second.
Not many people have. It's been quite under the radar, particularly with all the COVID stuff as well. Mic drop. Yeah. So, but it's okay. Like, it's fine. So you've got something. So we've already said you've got an app like Coconut or something else. We'll be able to do the returns from that. So you've got all the information. So it's about having your up-to-date information. It's like what we understand at the moment. Again, we don't know all the details because this is HMRC. What we know at the moment is it will be sort of 4 interim returns. So we would do, when we do things like use of home as office and mileage, we might just do that at the end of the year as a wrap up. So it will be your sort of your pay tax and your interim returns with HMRC. So it's about being prepared for that and getting the things in place, so to not scare people. And you go, it's all right, I've got this, because I've got my digital stuff in place, and you will need to do the you'll need to have digital records in order to do the returns. So the days of spreadsheets might be quite numbered. I know.
It's amazing. And I guess, will that be on a kind of quarterly basis?
Yeah.
And I suppose from their point of view, I can see the method in it, because then you're making sure that people, are actually spreading the cost of their tax bill. And then they're definitely collecting it as you go along in a way. But kind of making it bite size actually might, I don't know. I'm not usually pro these guys, but may make it easier. Well, I suppose it's going to be easier for some, slightly more confusing for others, right? And anything we can do to make it easier is better.
Yeah.
I suppose, just from my knowledge, when you're doing your budgets for your business, you do those on a quarterly basis anyway. So it makes kind of sense to kind of have the tax work on the quarterly basis as well.
Thank you.
I think my view is they're trying to get it in line much more with PAYE jobs, so that they're paying it on a monthly basis. It far improves their chances of getting that money. There's a lot of debt at the moment, so having it to be on a quarterly basis is far improving that. We've already got if you're paying tax over, I think it's £1,200, you have to do the 2 payments in advance. So they're already sort of trying to get that. I think that's where we're heading eventually, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it will help get people into the routines of doing it and being less scared, because if you do something once a year, you get around to doing it and you're like, oh God, how did I do this last year? I mean, we're the same here with some of our annual things that we only do once a year, like payroll year end. we get around to it and they're like, oh no, hang on, how do we do this again? And then so if you're doing it all the time, it's just part of your routine. It doesn't become this big animal that you're trying to avoid.
Because often your Facebook feed is flooded around sort of January with loads of people going, oh my God, I'm in the middle of doing my tax return, and stuff. And I think there's also, sorry to bring in the feminist point of view here, but I think there's also something really important around having that connection with your finances and being on top of them and knowing where money goes and what you're spending on, as well as what you're bringing in terms of empowering you as a woman. And I know obviously we cross lots of different genders, as sort of Dance Mama sort of has that umbrella, but it is called Dance Mama because it's me. That's how I describe myself. And I feel kind of it's only really in the last 100 years where women have started to have more of a handle and a say and the power on their finances, whereas, you know, right up until that point, we've been at the mercy of, you know, either a spouse or a father or another kind of male figure in usually in the family. So I think as well, there's kind of a bit of a, sorry to get all kind of woo-woo on us, but it's kind of an inherited thing in our DNA of it not always coming naturally, or for us to be forthright with it because of years and years and years encoded in our DNA of not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the most lovely journeys, actually, we had a client or still have a client, but who had never had any say in the family income. She never knew what was going on at all. Set up a new business. I mean, now the finances are under control, the business is flying, she's doing unbelievably. She feels so empowered and in control because she understands, you know, it's kind of like, oh no, that's my husband's domain, the money thing. Now it's her domain and she's flying. It's amazing. It's so lovely to see. One of my favorite parts of my job is taking the fear away and then seeing how they blossom. It's incredible. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Very good. Right, so we've got 4 returns a year coming 2024.
Yes.
That is such a flash to me.
At the moment, it does keep moving. It was 2023, but they've moved it because of COVID. So let's just, that's the current situation.
Okay, and that's probably not likely to change, is it? Because the next general election will be after that. Is that right? I'm just trying to think as well whether that could move again, because everything's moving at the moment. I think that's
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's been coming for ages, and I think it was 2022. I can't remember. I get confused if I'm honest. I remember important things like this are just like, oh well, it's dates, it will happen. But yeah, at the moment it's 2024.
Okay, right. We've got that. We've got that in the mind, right? Right, and so we've got that. What else could we be doing to help ourselves a bit more?
I don't know.
I think just trying to be on it, and I think some of that comes then round to time management, doesn't it? Of making sure you're blocking in that time. So although I'm still doing it old school, which is soon to be changed clearly after this conversation, but I try and block in time on like a last day of my week, like a Friday morning, the last Friday of the month, for a couple of hours or 2 or 3 hours to just kind of go through that income and expenditure and just trying to kind of work that out for myself, as many of us will do. But like Ele's saying, you know, Ele's obviously in a role that can really alleviate that, and actually investing in an accountant, whether it's an accountant or admin support as well for other kind of project management-y things. I think there's also sometimes a resistance to do that as dance folk, when actually, like we said, it will free up that brain space to be doing creative things, where you might design a project where you might generate more income because you've delegated the bit that you feel icky and to an expert. And we kind of we'll do it with doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
We'll do it with physio appointments, but then we kind of, I don't know whether it is that feminist thing, or I don't know, there's just like a disconnect, or whether it's a lot of dance folk feeling, because, you know, there might be a general stereotype of, because you're a dance person, you're not very academic, whether that kind of, how does that kind of sit with everybody?
I mean, I think my big thing is I have a cleaner, because I can't, the cleaning thing hits me all the time. Oh, I should be doing this, should be doing this, should be doing this. So all I have at home is this constant reminder that I should be doing something. I've got a cleaner because I'd never get around to cleaning ever, and then it builds up. So I know exactly how the finance thing feels, because that's how it is with cleaning my house.
Yeah.
So I have a cleaner that comes in to do it. I could do it myself, but actually I don't. I know myself well enough I don't. So I'm going to get somebody else to do that. I'm going to pay them 30 quid a week, and I have a clean house to come back to once a week. That's sorted. That's my admin. That's my help.
Yeah.
And then I'd rather spend a few more hours at work, because it's freed up my headspace, or be a bit more creative, so that then I can, just get on with life.
It's encouraging people to take that leap, isn't it, to do that? And there's kind of so many barriers around that to get people to that place, but then trying to champion on the other side is freedom, which is really good. But again, I think that's everybody's kind of own story, but the dance aspect of it, the negative side sometimes can be really disempowering. And I think that also goes back to a lot of hierarchical structures in the training system that really kind of infantilize us, actually, and prevent us from taking charge of things and moving forward. And I think also on that front, sort of to bring that back round to money, I think sometimes then that hinders us on being entrepreneurial and positive about how much we can earn, speaking up for ourselves, and then creating different types of projects or activity for ourselves, because there's also a kind of a tendency to just wait for an audition or opportunity to present itself. And I think we're really living in a time where we need people to make those opportunities for themselves, and that's not easy. I don't say that lightly. It's B word, as my kids would say, B word difficult. It's really difficult, but I think it's also really rewarding. And often, particularly because I come from the contemporary dance background, we're quite small, we're very intimate. Academically, we'll often moan that we're marginalised to the other art forms, yada, 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 yada. But I think at the same time, I'm putting myself out there with this opinion, money is seen as a bit of a dirty word, or, oh, you've been paid for something, you've sold out. And there's a real value judgment on doing things for free, and working really hard as a badge of honor, which I think is really, really unhealthy. And we all know, actually, working in a charity or not for profit side of things, that doesn't mean it runs on air.
Well, no, and you've got to eat. You know, I think. Do you think this maybe this badge of honor has come from? It's obviously come from someone really wealthy, or people who are really wealthy that can do dance as a hobby, and then just do all these nice things for free because they've got stuff to live on. You know, that's not practical in terms of, you know, most people being able to.
Absolutely. And I think also it's in terms of how we create budgets, and particularly for our community, making sure that you put childcare in there as an expenditure, and being really upfront about that. Now, actually, Ellie, this is a really good moment to kind of delve into this, because in terms of expenses, and we had a good laugh about this when we were planning the session, is back in the day, 100 years ago, when I became self-employed, I went to HMRC in Euston Tower in North London, and was in a session with a farmer talking about expenses. And at that time, Equity used to produce their little diary, which they still do. And in the back of the diary was a list of the sorts of things you could claim. And of course, being there as a dance person with somebody who's talking about, you know, a capital asset of a tractor, and, you know, farming equipment and depreciation and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm just thinking about putting in money for costumes. Very different. Kind of, what are your thoughts around that, and where could we find a up-to-date list of what we can claim?
So there are lots of lists out there. I think if we go back to what it used to be like, and I think a lot of students now are still being taught what they can claim from their dance teachers who used to be dancers, and are still telling them they can claim for haircuts. You can't claim for haircuts. I mean, essentially, it's costs you're incurring because of your business. Childcare, unfortunately, is not claimable at all under any circumstance.
No. But you can put it in a budget to a trust, is what I meant.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, definitely.
And again, let's pause and have a bit of a feminist moment on that. Did everybody catch that your childcare, which is an expense, you can expense like admin support, right, Ellie? But not childcare. Like the actual people helping you to be at your job is not tax deductible. Bonkers.
No. Yes, it does. You do wonder who the people in law who are making the law, and whether they're male.
Yeah,
they're men. 100% they're men.
Oh, I know.
100%.
No doubt about it. I know. Yeah, it's one of the questions I get asked most, actually, is about childcare, and it's like, but I need that in order to do my business, and I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
But also, but I guess their point is you wouldn't need it if you didn't have children. I mean, there are so many arguments about it. It's not really worth going into. Yeah. It should be claimable. It's not. It's just, yeah. It's not good. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in terms of your business, so you can have costume, but most of that's provided by company now anyway. There's your laptop, you can have a bit of your phone can go through, some of your use of home can go through, any software. So we've all got Zoom now. Mostly paying for Zoom subscriptions, yeah. IT support. I don't know whether there's an up-to-date list. I could do an up-to-date list for you, if you want.
I mean, this is often what we discover on Dance Mama, generally, is we go, what we could do is with one of these. Does it exist? No, it doesn't. So right. We're having to have a look at it. But I'm sure as well that it will be useful beyond, just us. There's multi-use around it. But I think it is really helpful, isn't it? Because, yeah, absolutely, the haircut thing sort of stays in my mind of something that was possible.
Yeah, and then you get on to waxing. Yeah, that old debate, and I still don't know where I stand on that, because it's not always necessarily clear from HMRC what you can and what you can't claim, which doesn't help either. But I can definitely do you an expenses list for dancers, because it has been on my list of things to do, I think, for about 5 years. That is
but how cool is that? Thank you. That is so brilliant. We are just so lucky, lucky to have you with us. I think it's just marvelous. That is really good.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, so I guess there's definitely that kind of around expenditure. And then I suppose with Coconut, so does that give you kind of very clear income versus expenditure kind of tit for tat, so you can see where there's surplus, hopefully?
Yes, you're always surplus. Yeah. No, it's great, because I think unfortunately we can't see what everybody else sees with the Coconut app. So they're working on a demo version so that we can actually see a bit more. But they have a set number of categories, and they'll explain what you can do in that category. So they'll say what you can claim. So it's a very standard list of expenses that you can claim. Obviously, as dancers, there are slightly different ones. There are like these nuanced things that you're like, oh no, I can definitely go and claim that. If you're going to see a dance show, I would say that's absolutely claimable, because that's still it's CPD, it's improving your art. Yeah. So that's something I'll put on the list.
Books and things like that, I suppose, and any resources connected to your research, because I think, again, you can sort of start and I guess this was bringing almost to another thought around expenses, was we kind of just generally do things going along, and actually there's huge value, isn't there, in setting yourself a budget and a target and forecasting, which I'm not sure a lot of people do individually. And I think I only think that way because I've worked in lots of organizations, have had to do that as part of an organization, but then I try and apply that to myself. It's usually really hard. And like at the moment, you know, I'm trying to write my business plan for next year and write those targets. And sometimes that can feel really difficult, that you're kind of plucking a number out of thin air, but actually by sort of staking a claim and net in it and putting a flag saying I want to earn X amount by doing writing, or X amount by this, and I don't want my expenditure to be more than this, then you've got something to work from, haven't you, even if it moves. And just kind of what your views on that would be, Ellie?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think I don't do enough forecasting. Hands up, because I know we're all busy, right? So I've started getting better. But I think just having that goal, having something that you're just writing down and going, no, this is what I'm going to do. It gives you a conscious focus, but it also gives you a subconscious focus. It's sort of, we have a vision board, which is it's similar. So however do you want to see my vision board?
You want to see mine?
Yeah.
We'll show you.
It's my vision board up there.
There's mine. I'll flash you. I'll flash.
Oh wow! Right, I'll bring it down and show you properly. Wait a sec. If I can get it off the wall.
And it's really fun to do and creative. Oh, nice. Yeah. Love it.
We're so I'll plug you in so I can hear you again. So yeah, you might
love it. Yeah.
But yeah, we have. So it's kind of like the numbers equivalent of a vision board. It's kind of giving you a focus and giving you targets that you and it will, even when you don't realize that's what you're working to, your subconscious knows that. So you will, it's always helpful whether you reach those numbers or not, and it almost doesn't matter whether they're realistic or not. You will learn where you get it wrong, and then you can hone it for going forward.
Absolutely. And I am just loving the fact that we are here on a call with an accountant who has a vision board. How cool is that? Because I think going through that process as well is super creative and really good for us. And I think in terms of having that vision, that doesn't have to come in something sort of hard copy, so to speak. That can come through Pinterest or other kind of different ways, but I kind of go on a thing of where am I going to see it to kind of infiltrate the subconscious, and kind of, again, it goes back to creating that atmosphere, doesn't it, and communicating your why, because I know we're talking figures here, but it all comes back to your why and your purpose, and it's just another expression of that. But also working from home, which I've been doing for 2 decades now, it's part of my little ritual at the end of my day, in the beginning of my day, because that board can move, that I can take it down and seals a bit of a boundary working, which is really helpful. But again, like you say, kind of and business plans these days don't need to be horrendous, horrific, big, yucky documents. Quite often now they're decks or slides with that information in. And as Ellie said, kind of, you can then evaluate as you go along. And I'm a total nerd with this. I evaluate pretty much every project I'm on against my values.
Yeah, wow.
I think it's so easy. And again, particularly as a dance person, to say yes to everything, because there's that kind of, again, that conditioning system programming one of must please the teacher, must please the audience, must please the choreographer. Like, there's so much kind of flexibility in that, but then it can actually encroach or be really fuzzy with actually what you're about and what you want to do. And then having that list of values really helps me if something comes in, and even if it looks juicy and ooh, tempting, does it really fit with what I'm doing? And especially as a mum, have I got time? But then trying to make those decisions from a more centered and informed place rather than being very reactive. And again, I think there's something psychologically with dancers to react and please immediately that kind of doesn't always give us the best decision-making ability, because it's often, and again, that kind of bleeds into parenthood. It goes into supporting everyone else.
Yeah.
But ourselves. And I think in terms of budgeting as well, it's really important to put in, not quite, if anybody is Parks and Rec, not to the extent they do the treat yourself days of like, you know, going up and buying a load of Gucci or Prada or whatnot, spa days and stuff. But in having a version of that, of making sure that there's treats in there, also holiday, and planning financially for holiday. And again, not kind of the burnout kind of potential in dance, and particularly for dancing parents, I think is massive, isn't it?
I think it's here. I think that's the case for anybody that runs their own business too. I'm definitely guilty of that. It's like, I'm always being told off for not booking in holiday, and then I'm like, I've got so much to do. And it's that constant sort of struggle, and but I've got to do this, and I should be here, but I need to follow my own advice. Six years in, I should be able to do this.
But it's constant, isn't it? It's constantly evolving and refining, and it's never kind of finished. And I guess that's the trap a lot of people have fallen into in the past. The expenses bit is a good example, isn't it? Of where it's kind of, oh, it's like this, boom, and not being open to developing their learning around it, and then kind of getting it wrong for a long time. And then it becomes, like we say, the gremlin, and then nobody wants to kind of poke around and touch that bit.
In case they've But I think it's a kind of it's a parent thing as well. You never get a holiday from being a parent, do you? I mean, my child goes off to their dad's once every couple of weekends, and I might revert to my 20-year-old self and go out and party a weekend, but you don't really get a break from parenting. And I think it's the same when you're self-employed or you run your own business. It's just kind of constantly there. So you're right, consciously putting in holidays and sticking to them is really important. And I'm going to take that away from this. I'm going to make sure I do it.
I guess we've not got loads of time left. Excellent, because we're having a good old chat here. I should have brought my cup of tea, but I don't want to over caffeinate because I talk quickly already. But I guess that kind of one of the other questions I got is, I have found finding out about any COVID support scheme stuff not very straightforward if you're self-employed, or if you've had employment contracts and stuff. That all feels quite confusing, and it's probably because it is, and it's one of those things where the government have been building the plane whilst flying it, so to speak. But I guess any kind of hints or tips of where the best information palatable information around that might be, because of course every page on the government website looks exactly the same, whether it's about the music and dance scheme or whether it's about SEISS. I mean, it's all like much of a muchness. Just any kind of tips on that, really.
Well, so essentially with the SEISS, if you're mixture of employed and self-employed, if your self-employed earnings are more than your employed earnings, I believe then you're entitled to SEISS, except where your earnings are over 50k. I believe this to be true. I will check. If it's not, I will let you know.
Everybody, but we just that.
Yes, yeah. So that's the general thing. We go to HMRC for all our tips and hints. So I'm not really sure where there's other information around that's more palatable. I can find out and have a look and get back to you. The other thing I would say is, as there's a lot of accountants, you will be able to have a free half-hour consultation. So you can always have a little consultation with an accountant and just ask them, get that in there as well.
Yeah, that's really helpful, isn't it? Yeah. And I think as well, it's just, I think what we're saying around that as well, isn't it, is acceptance. Because just accepting, but making sure that you make and take the time to really sit and digest that information. If you feel it's beyond your wheelhouse, then like you say, just going to an expert like we would for an injury or anything else like that, to
exactly
get that support. And particularly in this sort of area of our work, again, it goes back to giving people power and agency where they often feel powerless. I'm on a course at the moment with some other female startups, and one of the questions at the beginning of one of our workshops was, describe your relationship with money. Oh, goodness me. Like, it was fascinating from a real anthropological, psychological point of view to see just the spectrum of reaction, which I absolutely know will probably be with our call here in this session here today, of, you know, one girl was crying, somebody else was really angry, somebody else was just really deflated. It was just so interesting. But I've kind of tried to look at this for myself and kind of recondition some of my thinking, because we get a lot of those messages, don't we, as we grow up. And I think we can think sort of the finance thing is over here, but actually it's actually really much more visceral, dance folk.
Yes.
You think, but you want to kind of you sort of decompartmentalize it and shove it over there
because you can't deal with it. You're just like, no, make it go away.
Yeah. And there's kind of a couple of books I'll put on kind of the show notes and the links that I've read, which I found really helpful, just to kind of break some of that lack mentality thinking. And again, I think particularly the gorgeous art form that I come from, one of the downsides is it sort of perpetuates that, and I don't think that's very helpful in terms of growth, basically. So
yeah,
I'll share those, but
that would be good.
Yeah.
So something else I wanted to say actually around the kind of empowerment, what I would say with HMRC is, I know it can take a while to get through to them sometimes on the phone, but if you've got questions, call them, because actually the person on the other end of the phone, they're pretty nice, they're pretty helpful,
human,
and they're human. Everyone's working from home now, so become more human. It's, you know, have a quick chat, see how they are, you know, and they are lovely. The website's kind of dry. If you've got a quick question about SEIS, why not just phone them up and just say, okay, I'm not sure if I can claim it, this is my number, or whatever, and they'll chat you through it.
Yeah,
you might need a good hour to be on hold first, but but that's always a good port of call, and then you're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And engage with another human.
And you know, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We kind of want to make sure that we are artists, and we're creating art or teaching people about it or facilitating that, and we want to be sort of leaning into doing that as much as we can. And it's just accepting that is going to cost money and we have to take some responsibility around that. And I think it is very scary for people when you sort of say to them, you're actually driving.
Yes.
Because kind of, again, that kind of subconscious and very overt infantilization kind of, it sort of clouds that, really, that because we kind of, you know, if you're in an audition situation, you don't know what the criteria is. You might have had a bit of a snout around what the company is about, and had some sense, but in terms of the actual conversation that goes on behind that desk or in the room once you've gone, you're not really privy to, and that kind of takes the power away a little bit, but kind of it sort of makes people forget that they've chosen to be in that room. And actually, when you're being auditioned, you're auditioning them in terms of how they're delivering that just as much as they're looking for you. And but again, I think the kind of surplus to requirements message that we constantly feel, and sort of striving for the impossible perfection are quite unhelpful in actually making people realize they can actually take matters into their own hands and do really good things. And actually, so many of our dance organizations although they might not be run by women these days necessarily, a lot of them were founded by women. You know, Rambert, Royal Ballet School and Royal Ballet Company, English National Ballet. Like, there's so many of the big ones which are ladies of the revolutions. We've got about yeah, vive la revolution. We've got about 10 minutes. Sam, just to invite you back on if you've got any other questions or anything. Comment.
No, what I did want to say was, I know from having graduated from London Contemporary Dance School and going out there into the big bad world, you're dead right. It was like, oh, whatever job came my way, I had to say yes to, because if I didn't say yes, I might not get asked again. Yeah. And it was that concept always in my head of, like you said, pleasing, but wanting to achieve. Yeah. And then when I all of a sudden realized my, let's say, performance career had dried up and I was going to be doing more teaching work, and I became a mother, I had to budget for myself, because I was teaching, but it was through the academic term, and then I wasn't getting paid during the summer or over Christmas or over Easter. And all of a sudden I kind of went, oh, well, I've got no money. I have a child. I have to feed. What is going on here? So I had to learn the hard way of actually doing self budget for myself, to know I earned this amount during this 12-week period. How do I make that work for me over a 14-week period or an 18-week period? And the thing with that for me was really big learning curve, because I didn't ever learn anything about how to manage my own accounts or my own taxes when I was a student. So when I went out into the big bad world, I kind of got thrown into it at the deep end, and you get your first job, you get your first paycheck, and you go, woohoo, and then you go, ooh. And actually having to learn it the hard way, I think it would really benefit students if teachers these days could give them some guidance into how to do that before they enter into the profession. But I was then going to say, then working for the organization I work for at the moment, we have over here we have to do our taxes annually, but I'm in charge of budgeting for the oncoming year in the college, and then doing the taxes at the end of the year. Now I have an amazing administrator who basically does it old school. We're not on any app. It is very much spreadsheets all the way, Excel, but it is good because I'm heavily involved in that, but I have somebody who takes that pressure from me and does that, and that is so important. It really is. Like you were saying, you have a cleaner, Ellie, that is what you need to do in life, is prioritize where you're actually making time for yourself to be able to say, oh, I'm overseeing this, but it's not my sole responsibility. So I think if you can take anything away from this session, which has been amazing, by the way, ladies, and lots of fun as well, I think if you can take anything away from it, please, please, please remember there are people out there to help you. And like you said, you would go to a doctor if you're ill, or you go to a physiotherapist if you have an injury. Go to an accountant who knows what they're talking about, and it takes that pressure from you that you can go, oh, I have time to think of now this new way of making money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Absolutely. And I think it's, again, that barrier that exists, like that kind of silly, like little tiny mad idea that you can't overcome it. You absolutely can. And freedom on the other side. Ellie, I don't know whether you had any thoughts on what Sam's just been speaking.
Well, so again, it's the support is amazing. I think that the one thing I really want to do and get into is the more people I talk to, the more I'm like, we've not talked about this in school, and I'm like, right, I need to get into these schools and go in. There's always time to come in and do a session, and just even the basics that I've talked about today, and then a bit of a crib list for expenses. It's those first steps. Set up a bank account, get an app or something else, just make it easy. And this is what you can do, and register for self-assessment. And it really is quite straightforward. But if you don't know, you don't know, and then you try and look on the HMRC website and you go, oh, it's too much. So that's something we're working on this year, is to get into these creative academies and get in there and do a session.
Some of those are obviously on the call now, but there are other dance mamas in the community who do work in those vocational schools and conservatoires and universities. Do get in touch with Ele, because she will be able to come in and talk about it in a way that is really engaging and the students will understand. So I would highly advocate for that. Just before we wrap up, I think going to the next level now, because we focus very much on being freelance and a parent and that kind of self-employed side of things. Then for those of us who are more ambitious and then want to start organizations and legal entities, just whether you got kind of just a thought on that, and sort of thoughts on the process for that. I know it's a huge topic to drop in the last 4 minutes.
No, we can do this. We'll do a little break. So from a tax point of view, if your profits are about 50k, it's worth being a limited company. So that's the kind of tax saving point of view. There are other reasons that you might want to become a limited company. If you're that's too much to go into actually, but there are other reasons. What I would say, it's a lot more admin if you're scared about being or fearful with the self-employed thing. That being a limited company is a much bigger step.
Level.
Yeah. So I would always have a chat with an accountant about whether it's the right thing for you personally. There are so many different circumstances. Accountancy fees, if you're going with an accountant, will be way more for a limited company. So it is a big step. It can be definitely worth it. Absolutely, but that's definitely a get professional advice before you move on to that stage.
Yeah, and also I think again, for our sector, that legal entity can come in so many different forms that I find bamboozling quite a lot of the time, the pros and cons and stuff of whether it's a CIC or a CIO or a charity or a combination, all that kind of stuff. And as Ele said, I would really you need to kind of do your homework on that and really research around that if you're thinking of starting an organization or a company or a group or whatnot. And again, that additionally will need another bank account. Just on that front, I know that there's a newer bank called Tide, which people find maybe a little bit easier to use than some of the traditional banks. But there was a period, and Ele will be able to enlighten us in the last couple of minutes, last year, where I know a lot of banks weren't starting new accounts. But are we kind of in a better place with that now?
Yeah, it seems to be. Tide and Starling are definitely, and Monzo are quite good. And there's one thing I'll say about a business account. If you're a sole trader, you don't need to have a business account for your business. You can have a separate current account. So business accounts have business rates. A personal current account doesn't. So if you get a personal current account for your business, which you can have, the banks will try and tell you you need a business account. You don't. Sorry, banks. When you're a limited company, you do, however. But so just go with Tide and Starling are brilliant. Monzo are good. Get yourself an online. You want to go with the new fintech companies who are much zippier. The high street banks are, I mean, they have their place, but I don't think they have their place for sole traders.
It's very clunky. Yeah.
Yes.
My bank will remain nameless, but it is one of the older banks, and it's really clunky.
Yeah, I think they're just with the hierarchy, they can't, in the red tape, they just can't move very quickly. Whereas you've got the zippy fintech banks who, so and so can go, I've got an idea. The CEO go, oh yeah, I like that idea. Let's put that in place. 3 days later, it's done. A process that would probably take 6 months in the traditional banks. So they can really move with customer service and with new facilities. So.
Amazing. Right, we're nearly at time. Ele, have you got any final thoughts, or what would be the biggest takeaway you would like, apart from not charging in haircuts, like us to take away from this morning?
I think the biggest thing is I know it's scary, but it doesn't have to be. And there's help out there, and you can do it. Basically, you can do it. You can definitely do it. We can all do it. There's things out there to help. Oh,
lovely. Ele, thank you so much. Sam, thank you so much as well for being here with us this morning. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I'm really will be pushing this for people to watch it, because I think it's so important that we really get a grasp of these things as women in general, and Ele and the Barefoot Accountant is just a brilliant resource for us to have.